Hello, I'm Iris from Iris Impressions Art and welcome to episode 2 of my Q&A series. This one is going to be about my art process. Grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and let's get into the questions. Maria asks, I'd like to know why you feel drawn to create faces so often and how you realized that it was your thing. I still don't know what my thing is. That is such a good question. The short answer is, I don't really know. Why do I do what I do? The more long answer is that I find faces just really interesting. I don't feel a passion to draw anything else really. I don't want to draw frogs or trees or flowers. I've dabbled in, flowers, and obviously you've seen me do crows and raven recently, which has been a little bit of an obsession, but it's the faces that I keep coming back to. And I think part of that is that my art is such a personal process, and when I am painting, I think I am often just painting self-portraits, even though, I don't look in the mirror, I'm not painting my own face, but they are emotional feelings self-portraits in a way. And so, the closed eyes, I discuss this in therapy a lot. My art is just such a fabulous kind of like playground for discussing loads of stuff in my therapy. So the closed eyes, they're about like seeing and not seeing, and specifically not seeing obviously when they're closed. The big eyes are about, I don't know, like lots of feelings kind of assaulting you. I really feel that in painting faces, that's really, they can be so emotive. You can say so many things with a face and with eyes and a mouth and that kind of thing. And because my art is quite intuitive, I don't necessarily set out, I'm going to make this face look sad, or I'm going to make this face look angry, or whatever. It's not really like that. It's just that it just happens, and then it might show something. The face might look really sad. And I think that's, it's such a beautiful thing that kind of just happens. So I think I will be obsessed with faces for a long time because it just never loses its interest for me. As to how did I realize it was my thing, it wasn't really something I picked as a thing. It's just something I'm doing, and then I think from the outside it starts looking like my thing. But for me, it's just what I'm doing, what I'm passionate about, what I'm obsessed with. And I do think that it's very important in terms of like you finding your thing and you don't know what your thing is. It's go where your interests take you. If you feel like you want to paint frogs, frogs are they're so popular on Instagram right now. So I'm like, frogs on the brain. I'm not going to be painting frogs anytime soon, but if you want to paint frogs, then you really should, and you should paint frogs until you no longer want to paint frogs, and then you should paint the thing that you want to paint. So that's kind of how you find your thing. It's like you just try different things, do the things that you're obsessed about, give yourself permission to get obsessed about stuff, and then it kind of like, your interests will, you either get more into it or it will wane and you will go to the next thing, and it kind of becomes clear through doing, as with anything, I guess. Jamie asks, how do you choose your colors? Wow, that is such an interesting question. I don't know. I choose the colors I like. I choose my colors intuitively. However, I know that can sound really like arty-farty bullshitty, but there is something behind it. Which I think is a good understanding of color theory. Because when I first started and I would see people do all these amazing colorful works, and then I would try it and it would just become a mess, and like the colors wouldn't go together, and like what did they know that I didn't know? And like they say like, you just pick your colors intuitively, and I would pick my colors intuitively and like crap would happen. So I did a few courses. I did an abstract painting course at a local college here, and we did color mixing. They literally, you only got 3 colors as far as you got blue, yellow and red and white, and those were the colors that were available in massive tubs. But anything else you wanted to use, you had to mix yourself. So, and we did color wheels and like doing that and mixing those colors. I hated it, by the way, but it was really, really useful. And then I did a course with Pauline Agnew, a retreat, and we did a lot of color mixing as well there, and I created abstract work, and I worked a lot with color and contrast and that kind of thing. And by just mixing those colors, I became much more cognizant of how colors are made up, how the relationships work, what goes together, and why. So when I say I pick my colors intuitively, it's actually underpinned with all this kind of knowledge that is at the back of my mind. I'm not necessarily using it actively. I don't pick a color and then say, oh, and this color is going to go well with it because blah, 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 color theory, blah. No, it's just, I've spent enough time doing the dry, boring studying and color mixing in order to now just be able to grab the colors. So that's kind of what happens. Another thing that really helped with that was to work with limited color palettes. So where if I was going to sit down and create something, I would grab only 3 or 4 colors. And then once you get really comfortable with the color relationships with a limited color palette, you can then come and bring in other colors and see how they start working, like a color that becomes an accent, or a color that's like so opposite, like bring some orange into it or whatever. I don't use orange, by the way, but it's just like the worst color that I can imagine to bring in something. But it becomes more interesting, and you just become more knowledgeable. And it's kind of like cooking. It's like first you have to cook with recipes because you have no idea how these potatoes are going to react and how long you need to cook them and that kind of thing. And then after probably quite a few years of using the same ingredients over and over, you start seeing the relationships and you start knowing how one of those things reacts, and then you can start playing and you start becoming much more intuitive. So colors and cooking are the same thing basically. Dawn asks, do you keep a written journal? If so, how does it benefit you as an artist? Yes, I do keep a written journal, but not regularly. It's not part of my regular practice. But I do have just a regular composition notebook, and I do very kind of like boring written pages full of writing with my fountain pen, and I don't even put any stickers or colors or paint on it or anything. How does it benefit me as an artist? I'm a real thinker. And part of this being a thinker is why I like writing. Part of being a thinker is why I am doing therapy. There's partly of wanting to become a feeler as well, but I am also a thinker, so I want to understand things. And writing, therapy, they help me understand myself more, get more of a connection with myself, and become closer to myself and my feelings. So in that way, it doesn't directly, help me with becoming a better artist or something, but it's all just part of the bigger journey of the kind of the package of my journey as a person and as an artist. I've also recently got myself some pen pals because I do love writing, but actually love writing to people more than I like writing in a diary. When I am writing to someone, whether I know them very well or whether I don't know them very much, I'm very easily able to be very open, more easily in writing than it would be just to talk to someone face to face or on the phone. It's as if I can access thoughts more easily, and I can become much more kind of introspective and open through writing. And so I am enjoying pouring that into letters, and I do hope that my pen pals are enjoying that too. Nicole asks, do you ever make realistic art? Do I ever make realistic art? I mean, the short answer is no, because I'm not really interested in making realistic art. I am interested in painting my feelings. I am interested in expressing myself. And for me, that is not compatible with realistic art, because realistic art to me is much more about skill and technique than it is about expression. However, I do occasionally practice doing things that have more to do with realistic art. So I will look at an example and I will paint from an example, or I will do some life drawing, or I will do some sketching. However, it doesn't really hold my interest very much, so I don't do it very much, even though I feel like I should do it more so that I can kind of learn more kind of the technical art making aspects that then can come into the more intuitive. But I don't set out or have any kind of goal to ever make realistic art. And I don't think I ever will. So now let's go into talking about art supplies. Chris asks about something that I get asked about on a weekly basis. So let me tell you. I would love one of those fine liners. I would love one of those fine liners you write with. I don't know if I can get them where I am. Do you fill them up yourself, and with what? So the fine liner bottles with paint in them, whenever I use those in a video, people will ask me, what's that and how do I get it? So they are fine liner applicator bottles. I got mine on Amazon and I've put them in my Amazon storefront, so you can check the link in the description to find your own ones. They are basically little bottles, you fill them, and they have a needle tip applicator, so that when you squeeze them, the paint comes out in a very kind of thin line, and it would imitate writing with a pen, except because it's paint, it's much more useful for mixed media and going over things that would normally ruin your pen nibs. So I have 2 of them, and I fill them with fluid acrylic paint. I use golden, and a little bit of airbrush medium. I have no idea what the proportions are because I always eyeball these things. I'm not very scientific about it, but I would say, I don't know, 75% fluid acrylic paint and 25% airbrush medium. The airbrush medium is simply to make sure that the needle thing doesn't clog. I think if you would put in just undiluted fluid acrylic, it would clog and dry up. And also the reason I dilute with airbrush medium and not with water is because the basically paint is pigment and a binder, and if you add too much water, then the pigment and the binder will come apart and you won't have that kind of the viscosity that paint needs to have. So I would recommend mixing with airbrush medium and not water. Ellen asks, I saw your color wheel and I wonder what brand it is. My color wheel? Let's have a look. Pocket Color Wheel. The Color Wheel Company, Oregon. Colorwheelco.com. So that's my color wheel. I just got it from the art shop. So I would say that especially if you are buying from Amazon or like a non-art retailer, do make sure that you get a legit good color wheel, because I have seen pictures of people who bought like fake color wheels, and the colors are really off. So you really do want to get a proper one, and in order to make sure that you really do, you might want to just buy it from your art shop or like an art shop online. Marsha asks, what are your favorite brand or type of journals to work in and why? Oh my god, I could do a whole series of videos about this. I might have actually made videos like this before, and I've definitely written blog posts about my favorite art journals. So there are 2 types of art journals, roughly speaking. Ones that you can buy and ones that you make yourself. So ones that I make myself, I have made mini journals before and I have made junk journals before. And I do love both of those. So I love my junk journals especially. They are like an Amazon mailer with found papers and scrap papers bound inside, just with some string. And they become really kind of messy, personal spaces to do messy, raw art for me. Much more so than a regular shop-bought journal. Secondly, my favorite brand and type of journals that you can buy. I'm always still on the lookout for the ideal best journal. I don't know if I found it yet. I probably never will know, but I do know what my favorites are and the ones that I keep going back to. My most recent discovery is the Arteza Square Watercolor Sketchbook, which is this one, which I really like. The color, the paper is really nice, so I really enjoy that one. I like the Moleskine from the point of view of the Art Plus. I like it from the point of view that it's such a nice quality sketchbook, but the paper is very smooth, and I think it might be a little bit more suited to maybe sketching and inking. I don't know if I love it so much for mixed media. Then Sea White of Brighton. I think it's a UK brand. That would make sense, wouldn't it? Brighton. It's very, very affordable, and their paper is quite nice for how cheap it is. So I do keep coming back to those as well. And the Roberson sketchbooks, which have been discontinued, unfortunately, I really, really did like them, but you can't get them anymore. I think those are the ones that I really like. In terms of what type of sketchbook do I like, or journal, I like stuff that has quite good paper in it. But other than that, I'm not that fussy. Like, I used to really need like an ideal journal. But these days, in my junk journal, I have printer paper, like 90, 80 GSM printer paper, and I make do with it. So with a bit more experience that I have now, I can work on a lot more paper types than I used to be able to. I used to really feel like, okay, it needed to be 300 GSM hot pressed watercolor paper of really good quality, and otherwise I couldn't do anything with it. But it kind of like the world kind of opens up once you get a little bit more experience with your supplies. Claire asks, what are your favorite art supplies and your favorite place to buy them from? Okay, so my favorite art supplies. What are you asking of me? This is too difficult. I mean, all of them, but probably if I had to choose, I would say acrylic paint, pencils. I don't know. I just use stuff. And then I get obsessed with one art supply for a while, and then I move on to another one at some other point. But I can tell you, like, what are my favorite art supplies right now? Cadmium Red Deep by Ara Acrylics. Parchment Liquitex Heavy Body Acrylic. My red Prismacolor pencil. Those fine line applicator bottles that I just told you about. Ooh, and I just recently got myself some of the Liquitex acrylic gouache, which I'm quite excited about. Don't use it super a lot. I was a bit obsessed with it at first. And also, I recently got this Arteza gouache set, and I love how many colors are in this, and I really love experimenting with this. The only thing I don't like about it, which isn't anything to do with this particular brand, it's just that they are traditional gouache, so they reactivate if you put water on them. So I wish this whole set was acrylic gouache so that it wouldn't reactivate. But I love that matte finish and just loads and loads of colors. I love that. And so what's my favorite place to buy art supplies? Online, my favorite place is Jackson's. They ship internationally, I think. And yeah, I just love their collection of stuff is really huge. Their prices are really fair. And also they package things really, really well, which I appreciate when you are buying things that could, break and make a big mess in the mail. And in real life, my favorite places, I have 3 favorite places. One is Cornelisson's, which is near the British Museum. And it is this amazing shop that looks like this Victorian old wooden interior with original drawers shop. It's like a tourist destination. It's amazing, and you should go there if you're ever in London. The second place is the London Graphic Centre in Covent Garden. I really like it. It's a bit overpriced, but they've got such a good collection. It's just wonderful to browse. And the third one is the flagship Cass Art shop in Angel in Islington. They just have so many things. It's like it's on 3 floors. It's just amazing shopping there. So those are my 3 favorite places. Crafty Rog asks, how do you make your Amazon packaging art journal? That is a really good question. So that's the one that I just mentioned. It's my junk journal, and I made it out of like an Amazon mailer, and then I created a couple of signatures that I bound inside the mailer. I taught how to make this journal in my Lifebook 2020 main lesson. So if you were a student on Lifebook 2020, you actually have access to the knowledge of how to make this. However, if you weren't, you will be able to buy the course as a standalone from my website very soon. I will be adding that, when I get a chance, and it won't hopefully be too long, but that will be available on my course website, which is create.iris-impressions.com. Okay, I think that is enough for this second Q&A. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you found that informative, and I will see you in the next episode, in which I am going to be talking about equipment and more technical questions about things like my Cricut, sticker making, my ring light, and having a YouTube channel. So I hope you will check in for that one in the next episode when that comes out. Thank you. Bye.